The Jessie Roestenberg encounter, a moment of terror frozen in the sky. Unconfirmed case file, October 21st, 1954. You are watching the Unconfirmed Diegesis, where you are the judge and jury. We present the facts for you to decide truth or fiction. Late afternoon settled quietly over the English countryside near Ranton, where life moved at a slower, simpler pace. At a remote farmhouse known as Vicarage Farm, a young mother went about her daily routine, unaware that within moments her reality would fracture. Her name was Jessie Roestenberg, a 29-year-old housewife, a mother of three, by all accounts, grounded, practical, and far removed from anything resembling the extraordinary. There were no television broadcasts filling her mind with science fiction, no fascination with flying saucers, just the rhythm of rural life, children playing outside, laundry drying in the autumn air, and the quiet isolation of the countryside. Suddenly she heard a loud sound. Not an explosion, not thunder, something stranger. She would later describe it as a violent hiss, like water thrown onto a raging fire. It was enough to send a spike of fear through her. Her two sons were outside. Instinct took over. Jessie rushed to the door. Her boys, Anthony and Ronald, were lying flat on the ground, pressed into the earth as if hiding from something above them. Their voices were frantic, panicked, repeating the same impossible words. "Mommy, there's a flying saucer." Jessie stepped forward, her body tightening with dread. And then, something else took hold. She couldn't move. A strange paralysis gripped her, not total, but enough to freeze her in place, as if something unseen had reached out and held her there. And then she looked up. Hovering just above the roof of the farmhouse was a craft, silent, motionless, impossibly close. It was disc-shaped, metallic, gleaming in the fading daylight, not like an aircraft, no wings, no propellers, no visible means of flight. Its form curved upward into a domed top, smooth, almost elegant. Along its edge, faint lights shimmered, subtle but unmistakable. But it wasn't the craft itself that would define this encounter. It was what was inside. Through a transparent section of the dome, Jessie could see them. Two figures, humanoid, unmistakably so, but not human. They stood side by side, watching her. Their features were refined, almost too perfect. Pale skin, long golden blonde hair resting at their shoulders, high pronounced foreheads that gave their faces an elongated, intelligent appearance. And their eyes, she would never forget their eyes. There was no aggression in them, no visible threat, only a strange calm, a detached awareness. As if they were studying her, measuring her, or perhaps simply acknowledging her presence. They wore tight-fitting suits, pale blue, almost luminous in tone, their heads encased in what appeared to be transparent helmets, like glass bubbles enclosing them in their own environment. Jessie would later say they looked beautiful, and that terrified her even more. Behind her, the children began screaming. The moment shattered. The fear returned in full force, breaking whatever hold had frozen her in place. Jessie grabbed her children and rushed back into the house. Panic took over. They hid beneath the kitchen table, huddled together, waiting, listening, hoping it would leave. Outside, the object remained. Minutes must have felt like hours. It hovered, silent, watching. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it began to move. Witnesses would later describe it circling slowly, once, twice, before tilting upward at an angle that defied conventional flight. A purplish-blue glow flickered from beneath it as it accelerated, and then it was gone. No smoke, no trail, no sound, just empty sky. When Tony Roestenberg returned to the isolated farmhouse at Vicarage Farm that evening, nothing seemed out of place at first glance. The land was quiet. The sky had long since emptied of whatever had passed overhead. But the moment he stepped inside, he could feel something was wrong. His wife, Jessie, was visibly shaken, her composure fractured in a way he had likely never seen before. The children clung close, displaying a lingering fear that hadn't faded with time. There was no excitement in their voices, no sense of imagination or play, only distress. Jessie tried to explain, but the words struggled to form in any logical order. She spoke of a sound, a strange, violent hiss that drove her outside. Then the boys interrupted, talking over each other, their voices urgent and trembling as they described the object above the house, how they had dropped to the ground in terror, how it hovered silently, impossibly close. As Tony listened, really listened, something became clear. Despite the chaos of their retelling, the core of the story never changed. Each account, whether from Jessie or the boys, pointed to the same sequence of events, the same shape in the sky, the same silent hovering craft, the same presence watching from above. Even the smallest details, the position of the object, the timing of its movement, the overwhelming sense of paralysis and dread lined up with uncanny precision. Just raw, unfiltered experience, recounted by a family still trying to make sense of something they could not explain. In that small farmhouse, far removed from the noise of the outside world, Tony was left with a choice: dismiss what he was hearing, or accept that his family had witnessed something extraordinary. And judging by the fear that lingered in their voices long after the telling, this was not a story born from imagination. It was something they had lived through. There was no physical evidence left behind. No scorched earth, no debris, nothing to prove what they had seen, only testimony and fear. The next day, the story reached the press. Local newspapers documented the encounter, complete with sketches of the craft. Investigators arrived in the following weeks, including early UFO researchers who found no evidence of aircraft activity in the area at the time. No military flights, no experimental craft, no explanation. Jessie never changed her story. Not in the days after, not in the decades that followed. Her children, who would grow into adults, continued to recount the same details, the same fear, the same impossible memory. Unlike many who find themselves at the center of such stories, Jessie did not chase attention. She returned to her life, avoiding the spotlight whenever possible. But the encounter never left her. Years later, she would describe the beings not as hostile, but as peaceful, curious observers. The Ranton encounter remains one of the earliest and most compelling close contact cases in British history. It emerged during a wave of sightings that swept across Europe in 1954, reports of discs in the sky, of figures not quite human, appearing just long enough to be seen, and then gone. Some would later classify these beings as Nordic, a recurring archetype in UFO encounters, human-like, symmetrical, almost idealized, often described as calm, even benevolent. But what were they really? Visitors? Observers? A projection of the human mind under stress? Or something that exists just beyond our understanding of reality itself? There are no answers, only a moment, frozen in time, when a woman looked into the sky, and something looked back. Case status: unconfirmed. Phenomenon: classification, close encounter, humanoid observation, credibility index, high, multiple witnesses, and consistent testimony. This is exactly why this case lands itself in the unconfirmed diegesis. If you have enjoyed this retelling of the Jessie Roestenberg encounter, then like and subscribe so you won't miss the next time we dive into the unconfirmed.